Who are the 5 NBA players who do not have a chance in this world of winning MVP? Also, KD and Kyrie confuse me. Let's get to it. Hi guys, I'm Griper here, and this is I'm Just Saying. So, in this edition of I'm Just Saying, I'm gonna give this kind of a new segment. Let's say it's a new segment. I don't even know how to really describe it, but we're gonna say it's a new segment. It's called I Don't Know, Man. And basically, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the top 5 NBA players who will not win MVP this year. But first, I'm gonna just go into this I don't know, man. KD and Kyrie, this whole situation with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not going to give you this whole like hypothetical where could each one of them land and oh my God, they're gonna be in the Lakers or oh my God, he's gonna join Golden State again. No, whatever. I don't care. Like I like all that hypothetical stuff. It's kind of fun to listen to, but I never focus on it. It's on my podcast while I'm cleaning the house or something. Like I don't really pay attention to it. But I will say this, like just briefly. And I say briefly, it probably won't be brief. I feel okay. So when I first heard the news about KD requesting a trade after Kyrie opts in, it reminded me, and I put this in one of like our group chats. It reminded me of like when you have a person who's hanging out with you and you don't want to tell them to go away, but you're trying to, in an indirect way, be where they're not. So you're like, oh man, we're about to go to this club real quick. What you about to do? I don't know. So y'all going to the club? Yeah, I'm gonna stay here then. Oh, well then I'll stay here with you. But you know what? I'm gonna go to the club then. Like you always just say the opposite of what that person is about to do, just because you don't want to be around them, but you don't want to say directly. Even though honestly, that feels like just as hurtful. So like that's how it felt. It felt like KD people came out when Kyrie was like, he was like demanding to be traded to these teams who could not take him on for some reason. He picked up for each individual reason, the teams that he picked could not take him on. It's like, well, you requested a bunch of teams we can't send you to. Sorry, bro. Not going to do it. You're going to have to opt in because we're damn sure not giving you an extension. When KD was asked at that time, like, he's like, yo, I can't mess with dude. That's his money. That's his future. I'm just going to stay out of it, which, respect it. Fine, whatever. But then the second Kyrie opts in, next day, KD's like, I'm out. And I thought like, okay, so was he waiting to see if Kyrie left? Then he would stay with Brooklyn, and then if Kyrie stayed in Brooklyn, he would leave. That was my first thought. Then I listened to a whole bunch of pundits who were like, no, he's upset with how the Nets treated Kyrie, and so now, as a show of support, he's leaving, even downright to when I heard Kendrick Perkins, love Big Perk, when I heard Kendrick Perkins say, I think he doesn't even really want to be traded. He's just making that threat so that the team treats Kyrie right. And I'm like, really though? Because the thing that, like, if Kevin Durant doesn't make it to the Hall of Fame, he has to be in the Homeboy Hall of Fame immediately. Like, he rides so hard for Kyrie. And I don't know their history. I don't know their relationship. Like, I know they have a personal relationship, but I don't know it. So I don't like speaking on it. But it's like, from the outside looking in, you see one person showing so much loyalty to another, and then to me, that person not showing it back in return. Like the actions that Kyrie's taken, it may be like Kyrie, and it's funny because every situation, including James Harden is the same way. You can explain everything if you look at it individually, but then when you like take a 1,000 mile view from above, you're like, all right, this just looks like the same mess all the time. Because at a certain point, it's like that guy or girl who keeps dating people who are bad. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, maybe it's you. Kyrie always ends up in these situations of where the teams he's on, he may be spectacular, but they're not successful. The only time he was successful was when he was with LeBron. The only time his teams were successful was when he was injured or not playing. Like, for the Celtics, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals while Kyrie was injured and not playing with a young crew. The Brooklyn Nets made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Missed advancing forward because Kevin Durant's shoe was too big. Kyrie's there now, they don't make it out of the first round. Now, I know it's not a one-to-one comparison, and you can look down the list of all the different things that could be the issues. However, it always ends up being the same result no matter how different the issue is. Like, excuse me, he's not going to play because he took some personal time. Turns out he took 2 weeks off for his birthday. I mean, honestly, if you want to take time off, you want to take a vacation, I'm not exactly like, excuse me, I'm not exactly killing a man over that. I mean, do I like it? No. I can understand where people would be upset about it, but okay, you did that. Let's say that was the only thing. Okay, you did that. Then you have the situation with the insurrection. He's not going to come to work because his head is not straight on, like what happened in the world. Now, what happens to those people who work in an industry or work at a job where they can't just be like, I'm not coming to work today because of January 6th? Like, unless you were in the DC area and you felt like an immediate threat, your boss is going to be like, well, then I don't feel like you working here at all anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily get that privilege of having that. Like, he finds a cause, and I swear he throws himself into it 100%. And part of me is conflicted because what you want from stars is that when I see Michael Jordan now, it's kind of a sad story because he looks like he's clearly miserable, even though he's been at the top of the mountain and people still call him the greatest player of all time. He does not seem happy. And that's because I think that he's never going to get that same thing that he had from basketball. He'll never have that again. Kyrie, seemingly, for whatever you want to say, he has other interests. He seems to be, quote unquote, like, not, basketball is not his life, which actually, from a human point of view, is probably pretty good for you from a psychological standpoint. However, it's absolutely infuriating when you're playing a team sport and you can't count on the guy that you want to be there all the time. Like, at a certain point, you want to see that obsession and that, like, outright, I'm going to kill myself to win that you get from KD. If KD could have played on a torn Achilles and a ruptured Achilles and a torn ACL, he would have, because that's just that kind of dude that he is. Now, at the same time, KD goes to the Nets for Kyrie. Kyrie has only played like 60 games since he's been there for 3 years. Okay. Every time we turn around, there's a different reason. Now, if you take each individual reason, not a bad thing, but then you stack it all up towards the vaccination thing, and it's like, if it had just been the vaccination thing, okay, we hate it, but okay. But then you have all this other evidence that stacks up behind it, and it's just kind of like, dude, this is what just dude is going to be. KD has his back. KD has his back. KD has his back. But then the loyalty that KD shows isn't reciprocated from Kyrie in terms of, like, in the basketball world. I don't know what they do in their private lives, but in the basketball world, where it's like, I'm having your back here. I came here because we decided to do this together, and you're constantly not showing up. Like, I have your back when you guys want to, talk about firing this coach and that coach. And maybe KD was in on it too, and he definitely wanted to be a part of whatever. But it feels as though, like, KD has his back and Kyrie does not have KD's back. And if this is really like KD threatening a trade request to get them to give Kyrie an extension, I can understand why ownership and management is like, all right, well, then both of y'all got to go. I can understand that. Because honestly, the way that it's been working so far, you guys haven't really sniffed any success, right? So, and Kyrie doesn't show up to work, right? So I don't know, like, it feels like KD's being, like, hyper loyal. If this is the case, if he's really, like, doing this trade request thing as just like a threat to get them to give Kyrie what he wants, like, it feels like, and I keep having this thing in my head from that Derek Jeter commercial. He's a very loyal person, but loyalty one way is stupidity. If you're being so loyal to this dude and this dude isn't, like, showing you the loyalty back by, like, just showing up to play, by every time something else comes up, he needs to focus on that cause or focus on this, that, and the third. He's not the only philanthropist in the NBA. How are so many other NBA players able to do philanthropic things and still go play basketball? Like, how are they able to do that? There are plenty of other players who do a ton of great work in the community and can still go to work. So why can't you? Why can't you have your dudes back in these situations when he's having to answer all these questions and put the team on his back, though? Anyway, so that's that. I really don't know. I'm so confused by that whole situation. Now, on to Fight Me, and this is the top 5 MVP candidates that will not win MVP. And it's kind of hard for me to describe like what I mean by this, but what I mean by it is that everybody or a lot of people would concede that these players would get some consideration for MVP, and I don't think there's any way in the world that they're going to win. But I'm going to go in order from, I guess, most likely to least likely, meaning the strongest argument I have against is the number 1, and the weakest argument is number 5. And number 5 is honestly LeBron James, and that's just because I was making a top 5 list. It's pretty clear that he's not going to be an MVP anymore in his life unless he just does something otherworldly, but he's like 38, 39, or he's going to turn 38 this year in December. But the Lakers are trash. There's no talent. And I'm a Lakers fan. I am a Lakers fan. I love the Lakers. We are trash. We have nobody on the team, nobody that stays healthy. Like, as much as I love AD, he does not play. As much as I love Russell Westbrook, and I have a love-hate relationship with Russell Westbrook, but I mean, you can't say that the dude doesn't give you 100% all the time. It's just that, do you want that whole 100%, or do you want the 100% of what he's giving you? But he will die on the court for you. But he just isn't really vibing with the team in the way that they would want that to work. LeBron can't, I mean, at this age, he can't carry a team through 82 games and the playoffs and a championship. If he could, then he would be considered for MVP. But I don't think that, I think we're going to barely make it to the play-in tournament. That's that. Coming in at number 4, Devin Booker. Devin Booker, I heard a lot of people, like the last 2 years, ask why Devin Booker doesn't get MVP consideration. So long as Chris Paul is on that team, neither one of them will win MVP because they steal each other's shine. And I don't know if that's important to them or not, winning an MVP or whatever. However, it is not going to happen for Devin Booker if Chris Paul is on the team, because Chris Paul is too much of a floor general, and you can attribute too much of their success to Chris Paul. I mean, a huge portion goes to Devin Booker as well. However, like, there's so much of it also tied into Chris Paul that you're never going to get like that, oh, well, this Devin Booker's the reason why this team is making it to the playoffs. And a lot of times for an MVP, you need to show like that you are the reason that they're making it. I'm not saying this to insult Devin Booker. However, if Devin Booker goes down, I hope he doesn't. If Devin Booker goes down for 60 games with an injury, the Suns will still make the playoffs. And that'll be because of Chris Paul. And everybody knows that. So, that's that. Next up, and actually, I'm going to switch this one. Now, number 3 is Embiid. Now, Embiid is, the reason why Embiid won't win is because it's very similar to the Chris Paul, Devin Booker argument, but I'm going to say it's because of James Harden. Now, James Harden did something that was absolutely stunning to me, where he opts out and then signs for less to give like the Sixers some space to, you know, work with whatever they need to do on the roster. I also genuinely believe when you look at, it's the same thing with the Kyrie thing, like I said, when you look at James Harden and every time he leaves a situation, you're like, oh my God, now you're looking at him like, man, he's just gonna stop playing and leave. He's gonna stop playing and leave. But what he does is, before that whole stop playing thing, he gives you an incredible player. Like for the Rockets, for that 6 years he was there, 7 years he was there, 6 of those years, for like all of those years except for the last one, he gave them everything he had, which is why he burned out in the playoffs. He gave you every single bit that he had. OKC, same thing. Brooklyn, quiet as is kept. The first year he was there, he was incredible. Then he saw this noise with Kyrie, and then I can't remember who it was. I listened to it on the Ringer podcast. Once he said that he was going to give Kyrie that injection himself, he was gone a month later. Because it was like, I'm not dealing with this. This guy's not coming in. Like, put it this way. If any of you were a NBA superstar of the caliber of James Harden, who does not have a ring yet, and your only desire right now at this moment is to go ahead and get a ring so you can ride off into the sunset, and you end up on the Brooklyn Nets from 2021 to 2022 during this entire situation, tell me you wouldn't have left. Because I would have. And especially at that time, there was no indication of when any of these mandates were going to stop. There was also no indication that Kyrie was ever going to take that shot. So yeah, you probably would have wanted to bounce if you wanted a good chance of winning a championship. I understand the whole like sticking with it, and probably plenty of you would say like you would stick with it. But if it was this annoying and obnoxious outside of the Nets organization, imagine what it must have been like in those locker rooms. So I think that James Harden, after seeing what happened in the playoffs and seeing how he performed in the playoffs, he's going to get in the gym. He's going to work his butt off. And I'm not a Harden fan at all. I'm really not. But I'm trying to get that real. I think he's going to bust his ass as hard as he can to be sure that if the Sixers don't make it to the playoffs or don't make it to the championship, he won't be the reason. All that being said, if James Harden is improved next year, it takes shine off of Embiid, and they'll have to say that Embiid, he's in that Devin Booker situation. James Harden attributes too much to the success of the team, and so Embiid will not get as many votes. Just that simple. All right. Coming in at number 2 is Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum, I think very similar to James Harden. Jayson Tatum is going to be, or I could envision him being absolutely miserable right now, or at least the first week or two after the finals. Absolutely miserable, inconsolable, insufferable, not wanting to be around him at all, because I do think he cares about the game to a whole nother degree. He is going to do everything in his power to be a beast when he comes back next year. I have no doubt in my mind of that. He will be an MVP candidate next year. I have no doubt. I think he's going to show the world. I think he's going to show the world for real. Other things in terms of like Harden and everything else, I'm not even going to go into that stuff. I still think that Jaylen Brown is like the heart of that team. Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. But the other problem is that I think that the voters for the MVP do like to follow a narrative. I think the voters are not going to give him that much consideration because of the stench in their noses from his performance in the finals. And so they're going to wait and be like, show me what you can do. Because the last time I checked, when you were in big games, you disappeared. So I think that's going to be the problem with Tatum not getting MVP next year. And then last but not least is Jokic. Jokic, there is absolutely no chance in hell that Jokic is going to win MVP next year. He could go for 50, 20, and 20 average over the course of the season, and they're not going to vote him MVP because it's very, very simple. Your MVP has been at home watching TV by the second round of the playoffs the last 2 times you voted for him. He gets eliminated early. That's why. So they're going to move on. Like the voters, again, that whole narrative thing, they're going to move on because they do not want to be the ones who voted for the same MVP 3 times in a row, and every single time he doesn't make it out of the first round. Now, will they make it out of the first round this year? Oh, honestly, I'm not inclined to think so. And I had this discussion with some friends when we were playing basketball. Michael Porter comes back. I think Michael Porter, if he stays healthy, then they can make a solid, legit run into the playoffs. Jamal Murray, I think is a really, really good player, but I don't think that he takes them from first round exit to Western Conference Finals. I think he's an awesome piece, and more than a piece. Like he's a good running mate, but you need Porter Jr. to stay healthy, and I'm so scared. I hope he does, but he's been dealing with his back since he was 16, 17 years old. And it hasn't gotten much, much better. So if I'm relying on Porter's health, then I don't have very much confidence that they're going to have a deep run in the playoffs. At the same time, all that being said, either way, I don't think they're going to vote Jokic for MVP just because he keeps getting bounced in the first round. So that is, I'm just saying, let me know what you think. Go ahead, drop your comments below. Love to hear from you. Thank you guys for watching all the way through, and I'll see you next time.